Hi, this is Corey Johnston, and today's lesson is going to take place in the 46th chapter in the book of Psalms. And there are 11 verses. There are 3 meditative pauses signified by the word Salah. So what I'm going to do this time is read every section in its entirety, then break it down after the Salah part. I feel that's more authentic to the reading itself than to just hear me yap after every verse. But with a lot of Psalms, the inspired writing begins in the title, so we have to take it from the top. To the chief singer for the sons of Korah, a song with sopranos. So this would have been sung more specifically by sopranos, and it was written by the sons of Korah, and they are the descendants of the infamous Korah, who launched the rebellion against Moses, and he ended up on fire. But we also read in the same account that his children survived, and he was a Levite, so his children were Levites too, and as such they survived and actually contributed a lot to the temple worship and just everything else. So they're the author of Psalm 11 or 14 Psalms, I forget how many, and they would have They would have been recognized by David, who was a meticulous observer of the priestly functions. They would have risen to prominence by then, and I think Samuel was actually descended from Korah. He was a descendant of Korah, the famous prophet. But some of their evidence indicates a clear post-exilic period, so we do want to bear in mind that we think we don't have an opinion or even a speculation as to whether this is pre-exilic or post-exilic. So the sons of Korah are no one in particular, but they were all descendants of his throughout the ages, and it was to be sung by sopranos. Now, I don't have a singing voice, let alone a soprano one, so we're going to do what we do in English, which is read this as poetry in prose rather than sing it out loud, although some churches and some synagogues do, in fact, sing these psalms, and some of them are actually quite beautiful the way they do. So we're going to read the first 3 verses, then the Salah, and the Salah is a Hebrew term for meditative pause, and we want to cultivate the stillness we read of in verse 10, be still and know that I am Elohim. That's the catchphrase of this psalm, and that's what we want to do when we read the word Salah. We just want to take a moment of silence, a meditative silence, to pause and reflect prayerfully on what we just read in order to digest it and absorb it and distribute it accordingly. So the first 3 verses read, Elohim is our refuge and strength, a help in distress, soon found. Therefore we do not fear, though the earth reels and mountains topple into the hearts of the sea. Let its waters rage foam. Let mountains shake with its swelling. Salah. So the first thing we're just going to read the first verse in its entirety. Elohim is our refuge and strength, a help in distress soon found. Now that word refuge in the Hebrew original actually indicates a rock of refuge. So he is the rock, and that is the source of his strength. So he is a source of strength and stability, and in him we have refuge. That means we have protection from all the elements of the earth. We know that even if the earth will move, he is still in control, and we are in his hands. He is the source of our strength. So our strength does not come from us. On our own natural resources, we will be defeated and doomed in spiritual warfare. But in his strength and in his wisdom and with his guidance, we can become more than conquerors, and that unto salvation. And along the way, whether you're walking the Christian life or not, you're going to have distress, no matter what, whether you're a Christian or not. We are not absolved of distressing situations in our life, but we do have him. He is as close as the mention of his name. All you have to do is call out on him, and he will guide you in that situation. He will send you a signal if you are patient and in tune with him, and really align your mind with him. He will be there with you wherever you are. So no matter your circumstances, you can always look above to the one who goes above and beyond all circumstances. He's in control. Whether the earth and the mountains shake and the earth will quake, he is still in control, as we read Therefore do not fear, though the earth reels and mountains topple into the hearts of the seas. Let its waters rage, foam, let mountains shake with its swelling. Salah. So we're not going to take the Salah here. We're just going to say that even though the sky may melt, the earth may move, the earth may quake, we may be in a thunderstorm, but we need not fear, because that's just him speaking with his voice. His voice is likened by the psalmist, especially in Psalm 29. I think that's one of David's, but it's still the psalmist. To the voice of the Father, he speaks in the thunder, but that has nothing to do with this. But no matter what, the waters and the raging and the foam and water's going to come into the river of the city. So we want to understand it's modeled on Jerusalem, but Jerusalem, earthly Jerusalem, is modeled on the new Jerusalem in the heaven. That is where from the imprint it comes. So that forms the juxt of our next section. A river whose streams make glad the city of Elohim, the sacred dwelling of the Most High. Elohim is in her midst. She does not topple. Elohim helps her when her mourning turns. The Gentiles rage. Rain shall topple. He shall give forth his voice. The earth melts. Yahweh of hosts is with us. The Elohim of Jacob is our refuge. Salah. So the first thing we read of is that river, and Jerusalem was distinct from nearly every other ancient capital city in the ancient world, and that there was no river running through it. Thebes, Nineveh, Babylon, just about everywhere else all had a river running through it, yet Jerusalem was not. It had no river, so the river is the Spirit, who is likened to water. He is the river in this heavenly city of Jerusalem. And that is the city of Elohim. So this is an eschatological utopia that he is speaking of that makes glad. And it sanctifies its presence, so that gives more salience to the theory that it is the Spirit, because wherever the Spirit goes, that his presence sanctifies that place. Wherever he is, that place carries his sanctification that travels with him. And if Elohim is in her midst, she does not topple. Elohim helps her when morning turns. So he's talking about two things here. Nature, we just read that the oceans may rise and everything else, all these natural calamities of which we read of in the previous Salah. But he's in control, and he is not toppling. Everything that's in motion and chaos is under his control, so that we have to understand that no matter how chaotic the world around us becomes, he is still in control, and he is unfolding his wise plan out according to his providential arrangement. But when morning turns, that would have been the time in which the city struck. An army, a besieging army, would have invaded a city by daybreak, because at night they didn't have the cover of darkness and just too many other external things going on there. But this can be likened, I've heard it likened to in at least one commentary, to being modeled on the assault of when the Assyrians, 185,000 of them, were camped out surrounding Jerusalem, and they were ready to take it. But before they could even get up in the morning, an angel of Yahweh had slew 185,000 of them. We can read of that in Isaiah 37 and elsewhere. So that the Gentiles shall rage, kingdom shall topple, he shall give forth his voice, the earth melts. So even though the Assyrians and the Gentiles and the Babylonians and the Persians and the Greeks and the Romans and everyone else and the Muslims are at war with the Jewish people, their survival rests in the one who has preserved them, the longest running civilization being preserved for a divine purpose. They are in his hands. And so even though all the geopolitical dynamics topple, tumble, and crumble and everything else, his voice will be made known, and when it does, the earth melts. And we elaborated excessively in hindsight, where we should have saved for now, as the voice of Yahweh being likened to thunder, because that's what melts the earth. That's the physical effect of lightning falling to the earth. It does melt it a little. Yahweh of hosts is with us. The Elohim of Jacob is our refuge. Salah. So once more, we're not going to take the Salah, but when Yahweh of hosts is with you, that's his military name. So this is in reference to one modeled on. So that's one of the reasons we don't have it might be post-exilic, because he's memorializing this occasion. And but as long as he's with you, his angel took care of that army that was surrounding them and ready to kill them and boil them alive and do everything else. The Assyrians were brutal conquerors by the standard of any age. They were pioneers in systematic savagery, and they really just stacked these enemy heads on their wall. But we covered that more fully in our Jonahs. We've did everyone in that chapter, and also Nahum. We've done all three. You can type those in if you're curious after we're done here. So we have the third and final Salah to cover. Come, see the works of Yahweh, the ruins he has wrought on the earth, causing fighting to cease unto the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the chariot with fire. Be still and know that I am Elohim. I am exalted among nations. I am exalted in the earth. Yahweh of hosts is with us. The Elohim of Jacob is our refuge. Salah. So the first thing we read is an invitation. The psalmist is inviting the reader to come and see the works of Yahweh. And this is one of the things we have to do in personal evangelisms. We can't just get stuck up in telling our own stories. We have to invite them to see the one who worked the wonder in our life, the one who reoriented and did a spiritual surgical transplant on our own hearts. We have to invite them to do that. See for yourself. Try it out. What do you have to lose? So the ruins he has wrought on the earth, so the paradox of what we read from this to the tail end is that the Prince of Peace and the Elohim of Peace attains that peace through violence. And so all these nations, all these usurpers, these human stewards that have taken on themselves God complexes, they just want to rule the earth and everyone in it. That is the way of the Gentiles, shall we say. But, they're all his pawns, and he uses people estranged from him to punish and chastise the people that he had selected for this purpose. But causing fighting to cease unto the end of the earth. That's a global scale of peace that he brings. This is an eschatological utopia when all the fightings on the earth will cease, because everywhere in the world someone is at war. Any given time, somewhere in the world, someone's always been at war with someone else in the world since civilization, really. So humans are violent creatures, and that's the paradox of our civilization. But even all the nuclear bombs we can build are as nothing compared to his omnipotence. So he's going to he's going to confound the wisdom of the wise, because look at human wisdom. Where is it oriented? Towards building bombs that can, engines of mass destruction that can obliterate cities in smithereens in split seconds, and just nuclear fallout, radiation, all sorts of side effects. But, he also burns the chariot with fire. Fire is an instrument of his judgment. So you don't want to be on the receiving end of his fire, because that leads to the lake of fire. But the thing we have to cultivate it all is, and this is the most memorable phrase of this psalm or verse, be still and know that I am Elohim. So stillness has become a lost art and a lapsed practice in our modern mindsets. We live in a fast-paced, motion-oriented world, so it's hard to take breaks and pauses. We require stillness and rest, and that is part of our spiritual diet to rest and to think on Him, and it requires a stillness of motion and a stillness of mind and a stillness of heart to be so wrapped up in abiding in His power and His presence that you know that He is, because He is right there with you, He is right there next to you, He is right there all around you, He is in your life, and He is working His wonders, and He shall be exalted among the nations. So the nations, they rise against Yahweh, they mock Yahweh, they're on bloodthirsty quest for imperial manias, but He's the one who's got it under control. He is superior in strength and power and just about everything else, might, et al., etc., to all the human armies, on all the military engines that we can muster on the earth. He are no match to Him, and He is exalted in the earth because He has made it. So even though the inhabitants of the earth belittle His name by, however, polluting the planet, anything else, but He is exalted in the earth because He created it, and He will exalt the humbled who walk the earth, and humble the exalted, or humiliate them rather. So the words humble and humiliated come from the same etymological root in the Latin word humus, to the ground, and the difference between a naturally humble person is they will internalize their down-to-earthness, so that's the quality. But some people have to be brought, they're flying so high, they have to be brought low and humiliated in order to acquire that elusive virtue of humility. And sometimes it does break a stubborn ox. We can read of it in the Bible, and I can testify that in my own personal life. But Yahweh of hosts is with us, and when He is with us, no devil can steal our dreams or infiltrate our hearts or even, tempt us if we are truly walking in Him. So the antidote, whenever the demons or Satan enters your mind, the antidote and the cure is to always think above on high. But that does not, I don't want that to suggest you not belittle the the power of those entities. But as long as the Elohim of Jacob is our refuge, and his refuge is our refuge too, we are spiritual sons of Israel, the Christian church. And that word refuge, we've read that 3 times before. That was the first word we elaborated on, and that's really closes the chapter. That's Salah. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to see you. Stay tuned until next time. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.